and welcome to Presently Aqui with Claudia. I am Claudia, your host, and Presently Aqui is a community of healers that come together from around the world to share their remarkable experience about their journey to self discovery. And today I have a beautiful goddess to kick off our new year 2024 and Pluto in Aquarius with Swey Jitti. Hello, beautiful.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me here, Claudia. I cannot tell you how excited I am about our conversation. You already made the space so welcoming. I'm just excited.
Yes, totally. Like our pre-chat was just like meeting of the souls, right?
Yes.
It was just so beautiful.
It was.
Mm-hmm. All right. So before I begin, Sway, would you mind letting the audience know a little bit about what you do?
Yes. So I am a woman or a human that wears many different hats. But if
Mm,
I had to use three golden words to express myself, that would be I'm a
mm,
creative, a mystic, and an entrepreneur. I say
mm,
these three golden words because I believe they are the foundations of everything that I kind of do in life. My biggest gift that I feel as a human is to continuously create. And through my creation, there's always these ripple effects of where it touches humanity and expands humanity even more. And then as a mystic, my work and my I would say duty and responsibility per se is to be that guide, to be that shepherd, and to be that. I don't like using the term specifically healer because I don't feel like I'm here to heal. I'm here to
mm.
empower one to heal themselves, right?
Okay.
So
Yes.
that would be my second playground. And lastly, as an entrepreneur, I feel I'm a very playful, fun, and bold person. You will explore this as we continue chatting, but for me, I'm someone who follows the whispers of life and potential. I'm always listening and I'm always creating. I'm someone who consciously consumes to then consciously create. And for me, in my ventures as an entrepreneur, I'm always cultivating spaces for people to empower themselves to heal, to share their stories, to create more impact, to feel like, yeah, you know what, I am ready to be heard, I'm ready to be seen for all that I am, so that we can leave behind the wounds of the many, many, many past lives that we carry. So that is a
Yes.
little bit about my magic.
I love that. And you see why she's on here, right? This is why. And I love that she's like, I'm not a healer, I'm here to empower, which is exactly what, Present Leiki is about. Thank you for sharing your truly multifaceted, multidimensional self.
Thank you for having
Yes.
me.
Yes. So before we begin this remarkable conversation, we're going to take a few deep breaths together. And if you're driving, please just try to do this later or just do it, but don't close your eyes, right? So we're going to take, just to settle into this space, into the now, we're going to take one deep breath just to be here with, and now with everything. And the next deep breath, we're going to just take a deep breath in our bodies, just to feel our bodies. And the next deep breath, we'll feel into our hearts. And the next deep breath, we're just going to be with our mind, no matter what may be going on, everything and nothing at the same time. And lastly, the last deep breath is for you, just because you love yourself and we're here now and alive. So good, so grounding.
So
Ah.
beautiful.
Yes, and I started these because I'm always running hectic, as Sway saw. Sometimes we have issues. I had technical issues, and that helps, obviously the listener, my guests, and myself to just be here now and just be at ease.
Yeah, tune into the presence. I always
Yes.
love when conversations start off with this intention of, for a moment, let's separate to then integrate. And I think that was
Correct.
such a beautiful segue into this. So thank you for
Thank you.
holding the space for doing this.
Yes,
Ah,
truly,
I loved
truly.
it.
Yes, it really sets the tone.
Yeah.
And it kind of like you said, like it puts everything to the side. We're here now. Let's get into it, right? So, yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful goddess Sway. Tell us a little bit of some of the challenges that you face on your path to self-discovery.
I always feel that the word challenges has been a challenge in itself for me to integrate. So I'm going to start there because etymology is my favorite thing, as I've
Yes.
shared with you before. I feel that the perception of what is a challenge needs to be viewed first for context
Mm-hmm.
of my journey of self discovery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For me, my story kind of started as a child who grew up in this environment where there was lots of love, but not in the sense that was enough for my capacity. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe in life, many of us experience that where we have maybe the capacity of a large vessel, but the other maybe of a pint. And that difference in itself creates that challenge. But I feel the word challenge in my story or my journey has been more about changing perception. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, growing up in a household that was sort of like living in the duality of, oh, so this is love in this sense, and then it's also not love in this sense, I
Mm-hmm.
started to have a distinct disconnection with who I was because I really did not know, like, who is Sway? My roots as an oracle, my lineage, everything just became the forefront more than me. So it was always about honoring the past, honoring who came before me than the present. So if I had to break it down in a nutshell, my biggest challenge in in my self discovery or in my coming to self was understanding that that disconnection was necessary. I
Mm-hmm.
felt a lot of resentment when I
Mm-hmm.
first came across that discovery of like, oh, so this is the disconnection.
Right.
And in my journey of evolving as a person, I felt so heavily resistant to understand why I felt that disconnection,
Mm-hmm.
why this part of me wanted to honor me, not just everything that came before me, but me.
Yeah.
And the exploration of that led me to understand that it was never really a challenge, it was a redirection. So, in my vocabulary, a challenge has always been a redirection. I feel that in the viewpoint of self-discovery, growth, evolution, we often forget that life is always giving these whispers of realignment because there is never a moment of full alignment because truly
Right.
full alignment means perfection and perfection does not exist.
Correct.
And so for me, the challenge or the redirection was why the craving, the yearning to be seen by myself. And that's when it all made sense that I had to understand my full capacity in who I am right now in this human body rather than just being the parts of myself that I was in my many past lives. Because I truly believe that we're reflections of each other. So,
Yeah.
my ancestors of 5 generations ago, they were me as much
Mm-hmm.
as they're, as much as I am them. So, the yearning of understanding myself really catapulted me into understanding that once I truly knew who I was and understood what my evolution meant, that became my playground. And so
Nice.
here we are today exploring
Mm-hmm.
that playground. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in a nutshell, that was my challenge.
And I love how you reframe the challenge, right? Because I call it an invitation, right? The redirection, the open invitation.
Yeah.
And I love how you mentioned how you were just this. I mean, we're all infinite, but not everybody has the awareness that we are, right? And so some of us think that we're just a puddle, and you're
Yeah.
really the ocean. And so
Yes.
as I don't know, how early did you tap into your abilities? Did you know, like, at what point did you start to have that self-awareness?
I think the first clear memory was when I was 4. I was 4 years old, and we were sitting at a ritual space.
Okay.
My parents were putting up our altar, and they were kind of teaching me the normal things that they've been teaching me ever since I was, ever since I could understand the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was sitting in front of the altar, and I was looking at the flame, and I could feel the flame communicating with me. And I told my parents, like, that's the flame, and the flame is dancing, it's speaking,
Yeah.
I could hear it. And that was the first clear memory of me being aware of my gift and what it meant. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yes, fire is a phenomenal teacher.
Yeah.
Is I just always, every time I light a match or light a lighter, like I give it
Yeah.
grace because it's such a
Yes.
remarkable teacher, right? Like all the elements. But for some
Yeah.
reason, fire is so prominent, right? Even
Yeah.
though it kind of feels. Tell me if you feel, if you feel this, like, because water is also used more than fire, that we kind of
Mm.
not purpose take it for granted, but it's just everywhere all the time, right? We drink it, we
Yeah.
shower, we wash our hands. It's just, and we don't really sit with it as much as the fire. We have
Yeah.
more caution, right? So it makes us more present because there is caution to it because it could get burnt, right? Obviously. So
Yeah.
I loved how it spoke to you at such a young age. And
Yeah,
said,
it's interesting when you said that, the distinction between water and fire. The way I've always looked at these elements, and maybe you felt this as well, I
mm,
feel like, these elements know their role really
yeah,
well,
yeah,
right? The
yeah,
flame, she is very, very present. The
yeah.
water, I feel, represents more of the moving, the
Mm-hmm,
movement, the
mm-hmm,
motion. So she does not, I don't feel like the water element needs, she's not grabbing that attention for the presence, where the flame's purpose, soul role is presence, right?
mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm.
think that distinction always reminds me. I don't think it's
Yeah.
the water's role or it's the water's responsibility to bring
Mm-hmm.
presence. The water's
Mm-hmm.
role is dulying the movement,
Yes. I
you
love
know?
that. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because even air is the same, right? It's just a
Yeah.
flow, a continuum. It doesn't, it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, yes, yes. And I'm thinking of all the other ones. I'm like, oh, and Earth. Earth is
Yeah.
just not that space either, right? That's not
Yeah.
its lesson. It's teaching us foundation, right? Not,
Yeah.
wow, yes. Oh, it's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
uh, really recommend for anyone that is looking to get into a more present state, definitely work with fire. Just light a candle and
Yes.
sit with it and talk to it. And
Yeah.
sure enough, it will give you a beautiful gift of a deeper. For me, it was more of an observer. Like it really
Yeah.
helped me to remove myself so much, right? That I
Yeah.
was able to observe the experience of my life. And I was like,
Yeah. And it also has such great health benefits. I mean,
hmm,
I'm always about the holisticness. So like if you
yes.
ever play with fire in the sense of just observing it, you first of all start to understand magic even more beautifully. If you ever sit
Mm-hmm.
with fire, you see the layers between the
Mm-hmm.
fire,
Oh
the
my
different
gosh.
shades, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think it's always a beautiful reminder. Like when you look at a tree, it's a reminder of like, wow, magic exists.
Yes.
And another thing is that when you sit with fire, your eyes, they're meant, for some reason, they're meant to
Mm-hmm.
be gazing into it because it
Yeah.
actually has these health benefits that it refreshes our
Mm-hmm.
eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
anyone, do that. Health
Do that.
benefits, reminder of the magic. Why not?
Yes, definitely. And let us know when you do, because we would
Yeah.
love to hear how what it's taught you, right?
Yeah.
Um, Beautiful. So as we're going through your journey, so where did you grow up, if I may ask?
Yeah, no problem. I grew up in Droylsden in Manchester, UK.
Mm, UK.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you're going through your life in Manchester, especially as a teen, did you have any
Yeah.
issues having the self-awareness and going to school with kids and things like that? How were you able to traverse that world for you?
It was very, very, very difficult and
Mm,
easy at the same time. I feel
mm,
like there are 108 laws of the universe, and I feel like I've experienced all 108 in my life, like every section.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like the law of duality has always been a big part of my life.
Mm.
And so as a teen, growing up in an environment that was so, because my parents were immigrants,
Right.
growing up in an environment that was so forward in the sense of, you know, sectionality, segregation, separation. It was a very heavy realization that I wasn't just different inherently, but I
Mm.
was also different, as a perception wise.
Right.
And so there was that awareness of like, oh wow, I'm not a part of this in the sense that has been advertised per se
Right.
in social circles,
Mm-hmm.
but also there was this easefulness, and maybe it was the tuning in with my gift. It just made
Right.
me a very big people person. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was able to, I think I was 6 or 7 years old when I
Mm-hmm.
began seeing people in colors, sort of seeing their auras. And so it
Mm.
kind of made very interesting for me as an observer. I was able to observe how they were feeling and be able to
Right.
sort of reflect that back to them, right?
Right.
And so for me, it created this bubble of whenever I felt like I was being too separated or too
Mm.
differentiated, like my gift sort of came in, like we got this, you know. So it was that awareness and balancing of like, how can I take this awareness and allow myself to be in spaces in an easeful way to then continue being myself. So while it was difficult, it made me a big people person, and it also
Mm.
taught me a lot about boundaries. Like, okay, boundaries with my gifts. There were
Yeah.
many times I would rely so much on my gift, and I would allow everything to come
Mm-hmm.
in. And I'm sure you know how that feels. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was terrifying, but also at the same time, being in that space of learning my boundaries, it made me understand humanity a lot more. So in my teen years were the most intense years of my life that I feel my growth spurt internally happened.
Right.
So yeah,
Wow.
it
Right.
there was awareness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, because it is overwhelming when you open up too much,
Yeah.
and especially as we're kids, right? And we want to help, and we want to be ourselves and give and offer, right? And
Yeah.
we're learning. And as I like how you're like, yeah, I kind of was learning, like, what are my boundaries? Why? How
Yeah.
much do I open the gates? How much do I like kind of not? And
Yeah.
um, and work that and learn about yourself. And it's really good because a lot of kids do have that awareness, but they also don't have the terminology, right?
Yeah.
Of what that means,
Yeah.
and why do I do the things that I do, and why do I know the things that I know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. You mentioned like we are at that capacity as kids to just be
Mm-hmm.
sharing. Specifically for me, there was this one moment as a kid where I think I was maybe 10 years old or 11 years
Mm-hmm.
old, where I felt I was in this room that I was with these other peers, and it was a very difficult time. I think we heard a particular sad news that particular week, but I could feel the energy so much
Mm-hmm.
that at the same time, allowing myself that moment, and I think this is the gift of awareness,
Right.
especially as kids. The gift of awareness, the sooner you become aware as a kid, the more your playground kind of expands. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I found that I got aware of all these energies and I was kind of tuning into them, I became very selective of, oh, okay, who can I empower now? Because it was never about, going back, it was never about healing, but who can I empower now? And it
Right.
always began with these moments of kindness because I could see through the vulnerability and transparency.
Yeah.
It was so easy for me to take up that space of like, in the darkness, I will be the light, you
Mm.
know? So I
Yeah.
think my awareness really did redirected into that motto of wherever there is that darkness, I will
Mm-hmm.
try my best to be the light and shine my light from within. So yeah, I resonate with that a lot.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's really a special awareness to have at that age, to
Yeah.
be that light, knowing that you are that light, right? And that
Yeah.
you can bring that to people in a certain space. That's beautiful to have. Because as I'm listening to you, I think back, I was just I didn't know, I didn't have the awareness so young, but I do remember my sixth grade. I don't know if you have this in the UK, but when you graduate elementary school, you get an autograph book where your friends sign notes,
Yeah.
and all of them say stay sweet, stay sweet,
Yeah.
stay sweet. And then I never forget that, because as a kid I thought, what does that mean,
Yeah.
how am I being sweet, what is sweet, and so
Mm.
now in retrospect I'm like, oh, I was always that. And I just,
Yeah.
and looking at all, everybody's like, stay sweet, stay sweet. I'm like, wow. So, but you knowing is different, right? It's just you bringing that space in, intentionally. And I think in any space that, as is lacking a little light, is nice to have
Yeah.
be that intentional light, in all given spaces.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's amazing. I love
Thank
that.
you. Thank you, my love.
So, when you finished high school, did you s- like continue in your growth of your abilities, or did you go into a regular college and study like normal matrix things?
I did both. So, my parents and my family specifically,
Mm,
we had a lot of generational wealth. So they were wealthy in that sense. So they were very
mm,
deep in the matrix, to speak.
mm-hmm,
But also, I think my family dynamic was as such that my parents were in active duty. So
mm,
in our lineage, every person who is born in our lineage, they were all active energy workers. That means they were actively using their gifts in the
yeah,
community.
nice.
So being in that space, it was almost like it was a must. Like you have to balance the two worlds. You have to be
I
part
love
of the
that.
spirit world. You
Wow.
also have to be part of the matrix to fully integrate
Mm-hmm.
all of it.
Yeah.
So I was made to have very high expectations, like of
Right.
where I'm going to go, what I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do. So yeah, I did end up going to Cambridge, University of Cambridge.
Very nice.
I did double majors in
Mm-hmm.
psychology, clinical psychology, and
Mm-hmm.
English literature and language. Um,
Hey.
but also at the same time, while I was doing everything, I left home at 15 because it got
Mm-hmm.
too much for me to be in the dynamic. I think
Mm-hmm.
I shared this before, but for context, my 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 family functioning was as such that, oh, there's a lot of honoring here, there's a lot of respect here, there's a lot of love here, but they would also use the word love or care to do a lot of things that were wrong. We love
Mm-hmm.
you, that's why we're putting pressure on you. We love
Right.
you, so
Right.
we need to punish you so you can understand this. We
Right.
love you, that's why we're telling you that you cannot make mistakes. Someone
Mm-hmm.
like you should never make mistakes.
Right.
And that, as much as I'm,
Mm-hmm.
magical, I'm also human. And
Right.
I
Right.
think it changed my perspective. The
Mm-hmm.
human part of me really felt that disconnection of like, I cannot take this anymore. In the name of
Right.
love, I cannot tolerate to
Yeah.
be punished, to be abused, to be, put through trauma. So I
Mm-hmm.
left home
Mm-hmm.
and I pretty much started working a lot of different jobs to support myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very deep in the matrix in that time where
Right.
I was exploring a lot of different things at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
But continuing my education, when I was in university, I did take a lot of time away from my gifts. And I don't even think it's the right word to say it took a long time away from my gifts. I would say the practice of my
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
gifts, the
Yes.
practice of staying in
Mm-hmm.
connection with the
Right.
energies, right?
Right.
I
Right.
didn't have an altar in my dorm. I didn't have my rituals that I usually
Right.
did. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't practicing
Right.
purely because I felt so conflicted. Like, how can such a sacred space have so much, I don't even know what's the right word, negativity, so much negativity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Seemingly so. Right.
yeah, yeah. And it was a very difficult pill for me to
Mm-hmm.
swallow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I believe like throughout that time, I was I was moving through, I was healing through a lot of trauma because I went
Right.
full no contact with
Right.
my family.
Right.
And I was healing through the idea of what it really meant for me to be human and
Mm-hmm.
still be this individual
Right.
that carries the capacity of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized during that period of my journey was redefining that I'm not my parents. I'm never going to be like them. Redefining I'm not my ancestors, at least in
Mm-hmm.
the human sense, right?
Right.
And understanding what that meant
Mm.
really allowed me to channel and do my work, my core
Yeah.
work, even better. I feel
Right.
like that was so necessary. That separation was so necessary
Mm.
because I was not being able to be my full sacred self,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it allowed me to really see, oh, okay, so this is why this was placed. This is why I was born into this family. This is why
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
have these bonds. This is why we met in
Right.
this lifetime. And so for me, it was a sacred journey.
Right.
That being in the matrix and also continuing my, studies as a as someone who practices energy work, that was
Right.
very sacred for me. And then after that, when I was just about to finish my university, I went to Tibet and I went to Nepal and I
Mm.
worked with monks in monasteries.
Mm.
And I took almost 2 years of silence. I practiced 2 years of silence, no speaking. And I would spend a lot of time. I worked with one monk specifically in Nepal who put me for 5 hours a day in a room, dark room,
Mm-hmm.
complete senses off. Least to say, I learned a lot about
Wow.
myself, about
Uh-huh.
everything. So yeah, it
Uh-huh.
was it was powerful,
Right.
magical, but it also taught me balance, true balance of what it means to walk both planes.
Wow. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Um, I'm just taken because like there is always a point for us to separate ourselves from that spiritual space just
Yeah,
because we need to know what it's like to be human,
yeah,
right? What does that mean? Let me just be human. And
hmm,
then come back to my practices. Also love that distinction, right? You can't get
yeah,
away from yourself. Just the practices of that kind of like I I don't want to work out, right? Because I
yeah,
want to know what it's like to just be just not work, right? So the same idea and
yeah,
come back to the gym later. But that was it's really needed, right? It's
yeah,
important. And anyone who's listening, I thank you for bringing that up, because anyone who's listening that may feel shame around disconnecting yourself spiritually because you need to know what it's like to be human, that's normal. That's totally
yeah,
normal in the journey, right?
yeah. It's needed.
So needed, because
Yeah,
how it's just like you said, it's overload. It's just
yeah,
too much, especially when you're so young. You just don't even know who you are yet, right? You
yeah,
just like, oh, and this, and then my parents, and then the school, and then it's just suffocating.
yeah,
And then you just like, hold on, I'm just gonna just give me a moment, just give me space. I'm gonna create that space. I'm not asking for it, I'm taking it.
yeah,
Right? Because if you ask, then you're not really committed to what you need.
yeah,
Because this is your life. You're taking it. This is mine. I'm going to remove myself, and then I'll come back. Just I can't. So, and then, and as you're doing that, right? I love how then you were ready, and then went into study with the monks, right? Then
yes,
you're like, okay, now I this is the direction I want to go to, and not be
yeah,
influenced by my family, although they've
yeah,
been, generations of energy workers. Because I've, mostly the two types of guests that I have is either they come from a family lineage, right, of healers, or they are the first.
yeah,
So it's always that, but it doesn't take away from your own journey of like finding yourself on your
yeah,
own. And
yeah,
so that's why, right, that first question is so important, because we still have to go through our journey of who am I? What does that mean? And how do I want to show up in the world? Also, like, what is work?
yeah,
What are bills? How do I manage that space? And
yeah,
you were able to go into the space with the monks, and that vow of silence, and being in the dark is so important.
Yeah.
um in the dark, because I've read a lot on it and watched other people do it as well, and into the extremity of like 3 days, right, and you like 5 hours a day. Did you feel that that helped you tap in more into the ether, right? You're able,
Yeah.
in the dark, you're able to see more, funny
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you feel that experience?
I did. I did. And I
Mm,
feel like it was very necessary for me to do so
mm,
because I feel like before that, I already reached a point in my life where I was like, I know the direction I want to take, but
right.
there was a lot of cloud, a lot of fog,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
perceptionally speaking.
mm-hmm,
And for context, I'm someone who sees metaphorically
mm-hmm,
and even physically. My
mm-hmm,
gifts rely on me seeing.
mm-hmm.
And so, being an oracle, my biggest way of creating that space of healing is
Yes,
through seeing into the future, seeing into the past, seeing,
yes,
right? And so, for
mm-hmm,
me, my perception was very clouded,
yes,
very, very clouded.
yes,
And when your perception is clouded, even as someone who holds the sacred container to create space for others, you can't nurture who you are as a human.
mm-hmm,
And for me, that was the biggest space. I did not know what my humanness needed. I knew
mm-hmm,
what I needed as someone who is part of this lineage, who knows I'm very
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
connected to the spirits, but
mm-hmm.
I did not know what I needed as a human. And that
Right,
was the most important
yeah,
mission for me at that time. So when I was in the dock, I just saw so much more of myself, so
mm,
much more of what I really, really needed to see for me to
right,
nurture my human body. I didn't even know my ears could work as much as they did. I was picking up on everything. And I think after the 2 years of that, I became so much more in tune. Like now, I don't even have to. And this is funny, but it also is very interesting. I have become the kind of person where I have really found this balance that when I
mm,
meet someone and I'm not, if I don't know if I want to work with them yet,
mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm.
are they safe for my energy
Uh-huh.
to,
Mm-hmm.
meddle
Yes,
with,
yes.
I can just rely on my senses. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of put the gift that my energy has into my main senses. So now when I walk into a room, I look at someone with the way they do their hair, with what are they
Yeah.
wearing, with the way they're saying things. I don't even have to use my energy. Perception, the way I'm
Uh-huh.
consuming them. I'm
Right. Ooh.
noticing what
Mm.
I would have never noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
That has now become my human superpower that is
Mm-hmm.
allowing me to create my boundary before I allow the energy person, the energetic gifts to come through. So those 2 years in the darkness showed me, made me hear, made
Right.
me feel like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the differentiation between fear and sadness before, or the
Mm-hmm. It was
different
so
kinds of
important.
sadness,
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
right? Different
Mm-hmm.
kinds of
Mm-hmm.
fears. In the darkness, one of the biggest lessons I heard, well, the biggest lessons I learned about fear was that fear is not fear. Fear is a reminder of something,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time just getting to know my fears, who was my
Mm.
fear. And I
Right.
became friends with my fear to the point that
Mm-hmm.
today, when fear comes knocking at my door, I am very gentle with my fear. I'm like,
Yeah.
I see you. I hear you. Come here. Come here. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
what you need to hear me. Tell me what you need
Yeah.
to tell me because I know you're coming from a place of protecting me. So, yeah, the dark opened my senses,
Mm.
human senses.
Wow, that is remarkable. Oh my goodness. Yes,
Everyone should try it
yes.
at least
Should
once.
100%, definitely,
Yeah.
because it's also meditation. That's what we're going in
Yeah.
the dark, right?
Yeah.
That's how we find ourselves. That's why
Yeah.
meditation's so important. And even when I meditate in the day, I have like what are those that you put on to sleep? Those little
Yeah.
covers.
Eye
I use
masks.
it, the eye
Yeah.
mask, because I want to be in the dark. I want to
Yeah.
I want to feel and see, especially if I'm working with an energy, right? Specifically,
Yeah.
for me, if I'm doing heart work and I'm feeling sad, I like
Yeah.
to work with the Hathors, the seven sisters,
Yeah.
and I want to see them. I want to feel. I want to be so immersed in their motherly love that it just, right. It
Yes.
allows my waters to just come out and allow to release. I love that.
Yes.
So I started doing that because I'm like, oh my god, it's too much light.
Yeah.
And because I'm not able to see them in a right,
Yeah.
I want to be in the dark to see, and that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
How that is. Oh my goodness. And I wanted to unpack a little bit more, but I might will say this at the end. Um, regarding see, right? Regarding sight,
Yeah.
in the third eye, right, and the crown chakra. And this is why I brought on Sway, because I wanted to have this conversation for everyone out there, so we can remove the programming of what it
Yeah.
is to be psychic, right,
Yeah.
and how through time has been misused, the word and the gift.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll unpack that towards the end, because it's truly important. We're going into a world, and I love how you said you as the oracle, because what is being requested of us divine feminines is to step into our oracle selves. That is part
Yeah.
of our gifts to offer the world, right, as
Yeah.
we move into this new energy and this new timeline. Um, and moving forward in this 2024, you're going to hear me say a lot of things that may be new to the
Yeah.
listener that I've never touched up on before, but it is time for
It
us
is.
to dive into our spiritual selves.
Mm-hmm.
And, we know our human selves. I think most of the listeners are adults and we know what it's like to be human, but we need to tap into our spirit. And the spirit is the heart, the light. It's all here. And you
Yeah.
need to start to develop this friendship with yourself. And
Mm.
I love how you said the different types of sadness. What is fear, right? How does it show up? It's so important to know these emotions that come in, because, right, we just swat them away because we're afraid to face our shadows. and
Yeah.
and they're here to teach us. It's not a bad thing. It's just the programming and
Yeah.
the shame that comes with all of this. So before I go into this rabbit hole,
I
let's
know.
continue,
I feel you.
right? Let's continue Sway's journey. Okay, so um so as you know, you went to the monks, right, and you had this remarkable, unforgettable journey with them.
Yeah.
Where at that point did you decide, okay, I'm ready now to offer myself up to the world, and am able to offer my abilities, my love, right? Now that you've also, I'm sure, defined now love for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned how, the way we use the wording love, right? It
Yeah.
can taint us and scare us
Yeah.
into accepting and being open to it, because the misuse of it can put us
Yeah.
off. And love is such another conversation to be had, because we kind of I feel like that's part of the fear of not wanting to build a relationship with yourself, right, not knowing
Yeah.
what love is, right, and what does that mean for you. But please,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
first of all, like I love love. I think I have been I think this is a beautiful starting point to this because ever since I've been a child, I've been so open. I didn't know what it meant to be closed, right? As an adult now, I know what it means to be closed and I have to exercise closing. I have to exercise putting the walls. But as a child, my most natural
Yeah.
state was love.
Yes.
And I feel like as a kid or young me knew the different faces, the different languages of love. But as an adult, I had to really understand what that meant because the older we grow, the more disconnection we have with our core, the
Right.
heart, the spirit.
Right.
And so for me, the ready part was on so many different levels. I mean,
mm,
first of all, going into that, one of the challenges after coming out of the 5 hours was like service. You have to be devoted to service.
mm, mm,
And so what that meant in the monastery was that people, travelers, whoever came, we had to be in service for them. Whether it meant giving them water, washing their feet, giving them bits of wisdom, whatever it was, we
right.
had to be open and ready. It was not even a question of, can you do this? It was part of the routine. You finish
mm,
before the 5 hours you serve, after the 5 hours, you go into service again. And
mm.
so I met a lot of different people and I saw through a lot of different people. And
Right.
before I knew it, I was channeling. Wisdom was flowing out of me.
Mm-hmm.
There were two specific people. They were a couple. They came to that monastery and they wanted to rest. And the monastery always had a place for rest for whoever came.
Mm-hmm.
And this couple, they wanted to speak to one of the head monks, and the monks, they didn't differentiate. There was no such thing as this person is better or this person is less. Everybody was almost like on an equal standing.
Right. Right.
And so the monk that I was working with, he just gently told me, and he was a man of very few words, human of very few words.
Mm-hmm.
He just told me, there. And I saw that couple. They had already changed. They came and they sat down after their bath, and they basically wanted to share what they were going through. I sat there, and keep in mind, this couple was maybe in their 60s, okay? Whereas I, early 20s, okay?
Right.
Life was,
Right.
the life difference that we had was huge.
Mm-hmm.
But as I sat there, they were sharing with me their struggles. They were sharing with me what they were going through. And one of the things that I was told, my teacher, the monk that I was working with, told me, every time you use your voice, you will use it with intention. You will use it with pure intention. And that was something I had to discover. Like, what does it mean to be in pure intention? It was that moment where they asked me something. They asked me, what do we do? And I think as humans, we reach this point in our life every time we're like, what do we do now? Right? And keep in mind, I'm in my early 20s, just reconnecting with myself. So much self doubt, not even knowing how much am I worthy. I'm sitting there, I'm listening to this beautiful couple who have shared life, been through life, and they are asking me, what do we do? It was that moment that I realized my words will impact them. No matter what I say.
Right.
No matter what I said. I could have said rubbish, but it would have impacted them because they're at the end of their lifeline. Right? They're at the end of their lifeline, and I didn't know how many more years they were going to have. But to be at that age and to ask someone, what do we do? It takes, number one, courage. Number two, you have done all the searching you can do, right? To come to that point. In that moment, when I realized my words are going to impact them no matter what I say, I took a moment and I allowed whatever I heard from within to come out. And I don't exactly remember what I said, but I can remember the reaction. And the reaction was the couple held my hands together and they just looked at me in the eyes and they said, we will remember you. We will remember you. And I started crying. They started crying. It was a moment. It was a moment. That was the first year. They came back the second year that I was in there. They specifically asked for me. They described me. The man in the couple, he was already losing his memories. I think he had Alzheimer's. And the woman is, her health is okay, but she's not at her best. Right. Age is affecting. And when I came and I saw them, I could see that they were happier than ever. And whatever I told them, it made a difference. It changed their pathway. And if I remember correctly, I maybe said one sentence with 4 to 5 words. That's it. Right. Because for me, it was like, I have to speak with integrity. Yeah. But that changed for me everything. So now whenever I speak, even if I, sometimes I'm mid downloading, I'm speaking, I'm processing, and I'm still downloading. Like, whatever needs to be said will be said. I always trust that. But that changed my way of using words. That's why I love etymology, because I know that if, again, it comes back to that balance that I had to learn between being in the humanness and also being so close to spirit and being spirit itself. I knew that this is a path that I had to walk with integrity. And integrity comes with knowing that your words matter before the actions do. The word in itself is the first action.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, sound, right?
Yeah.
Sound. Yes. Wow. That story was so beautiful, so so beautiful. And I can, obviously I can feel,
Yeah.
although I've never met these people, but as you're telling me the story, I can almost touch into that
Yeah.
space of how you made them feel. Because
Yeah.
you don't, but the words don't matter because I can feel them wherever they may be, touched
Mm.
by you, and probably have passed. And if they have passed, then that's probably why I can feel them,
Yeah.
of
For
what you
sure.
said. And and this is why it's important for us to talk and have these communications. And um, gosh, it's so basic, right? Words, integrity, intentionality. But because we're so, I love how you brought this up from the beginning. Your perception was clouded
Yeah.
because our perception is clouded, and we don't know our emotions and ourselves, and we come out of our mouths,
Yeah.
with such disdain for each
Yeah.
other. And it's hurtful to watch and see, as us, as we're so tapped in and understand the responsibility of the word, because we know what sound means.
Yeah.
And forget seeing. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's why it's important, right, to practice mindfulness, so you can be able to be take a moment back and like, oh, is this what I really mean, or am I just upset to project
Yeah.
versus what my heart wants to say, right? It's thank you for that story, because I feel
Of
like that's
course.
a great base for
Yeah.
the listener to kick off this year of just pay attention. Where are your
Yeah.
words coming from? Are they coming from a traumatic space? Are they coming from a hurtful space? And you just want to hurt back, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure we've received, right, that hurt and that
Yeah.
projection, right? And we know what it's like to ever be on the receiving end of that. All of us do, and
Absolutely.
it's not fun. It doesn't feel good. So just that knowledge should open up that space. Like, hey, do I want to give that to someone, or do I
Yeah.
want to give back love, right? Versus regurgitating hate,
Yeah.
for each other, because that's what it is. We're not really. Uh, I feel like not and so much hate and like, I'm just gonna do this. It's just regurgitating, like energy transference,
Yeah.
right? One
Absolutely.
person hates the other person, that person goes back, and it just like that frequency, that wave,
Yeah.
right. And it's just, instead, why don't we do the love wave?
Yeah.
and and
Absolutely.
and as it reverts out, it comes back to you. It's what we don't realize. It
Yeah.
comes back. So what do you want to come back to you? That's
Yeah.
important, as you're using your words.
No,
Right, Sway?
100%. Yeah. No, one of the things I love what you said about bringing mindfulness into this, because truly, as healers, before we even do the work, we're doing the work. We don't realize this,
Mm-hmm.
right? We
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
that the work is the work, but really it's the before, the after, the in between. That's the work.
Yes. Yes.
And as people who are radically responsible to be the shepherds, to be the guides, to be the,
Mm-hmm.
doulas of bringing the
Yes.
evolution, it is so much more important that we know what we're saying. Because I had
Yes.
an experience last year, and it was a fellow energy worker. She sort of had this beautiful, loving energy, but when someone is not, when they're coping, I think I talked about
Mm-hmm.
this with you before
Mm-hmm.
in our previous
Mm-hmm.
conversation. When someone's coping and they're not healed or they're not healing,
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be that projection from a place of
Yes.
where they were, not where they
Yes.
are, right? And so this particular experience with this particular energy worker, I loved her. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like love, I feel it before I can even formulate
Mm-hmm.
it, but I loved her. And I know she
Mm-hmm.
loved me, but that there was one moment in time where there was clearly, like, there was another energy worker that I kind of connected her with. She felt so intimidated with the other, by the other energy worker. Why? Because, and it was very clear, we talked about it as well, because the other energy worker, oof, when she walks into the room, you can feel her dark feminine.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
she was Shakti, walking with
Mm-hmm.
the gurus, I
Right.
don't know what are they called in English? The
No,
anklets.
gurus. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
anklets,
Oh, mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
She was walking with presence. She was so filled with presence. Whereas this energy worker that I was speaking to, she was all about the past. There was
Mm.
no presence in her life.
Right.
Everything was related to the past. And so there was this intimidation. And I'm someone who's always in the future, the now, everything is tangled up. And so I remember I was trying to like make sure that there is no conflict, there's
Right.
nothing that's going on.
Yeah.
And she projected.
Mm.
And at first I allowed it because I was like, it's not a big boundary that she's crossing. But she started saying things like, oh, you wouldn't know this. You
Mm.
don't need to tell me what your gifts are. But every chance that she would get, she would, share, like, I'm gifted, I'm gifted, I'm gifted. And keep in mind, this person is white. We've talked about this before as well, but for
Yes.
me, I'm a huge advocate for being represented in the way that is
Mm-hmm.
not right but sacred. Okay,
Mm.
and this
Mm.
this is sacred knowledge, this is sacred wisdom that doesn't just come from thin air. This is
Mm-hmm.
passed on the backs and minds and souls of many that have come before us. So
Yes.
when she was sharing all of this, I really was like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to take it as this, I'm going to educate. She didn't want to be educated.
Mm-mm.
And then so she was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm like, okay. And I remember that moment, I was just speaking to my husband right after, and I was like, you know what? 5 years ago, me would not be able to handle that, would probably be crying, because I hurt very easily. I
Right.
hurt very easily.
Right.
But when you know that it's not love, it becomes something else,
Uh-huh.
it's so easy to separate yourself and take
Yes.
that responsibility of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is not the space that I should belong to. Right.
Correct.
So going back to what she said, which is being so mindful of the words, that's
Yes.
when I knew, when that space right away, I knew like, okay, this is not someone I can share space with because they're
Mm.
not mindful. They don't know that their words carry energy that
Right.
can be stuck on anyone. Right. So
Right.
yeah, it's as healers, I know a lot of healers are tuning into this. The
Yes.
divine
Mm-hmm.
souls are tuning into this. It's a reminder. It's your radical
Yes.
responsibility. It's not a
Yes.
optional thing. It's
Right.
your radical responsibility
Radical.
to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you are speaking with presence and intention.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
there is such a thing as spiritual narcissism.
Yep.
Sorry to say,
Yep.
but it's a truth. And that's what she did describe just now. And
Yeah.
a lot of us have met a lot of these people. And there is a lot of that. And they have a hierarchy of who has more expanded consciousness, and what do they know. And, again, coming back to privilege, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
Mm,
privileged in the space, then no, no. In the greater scheme of things, there are no hierarchies. Even the monks where you were working at, they didn't even
yeah.
have hierarchy.
No.
It's just the deepening of the practice of self,
Yeah.
and then knowing
Absolutely.
divine laws,
Yeah.
right? Because that's also part of you. That's how you know divine laws. Because we've come across many of them. We just don't know them,
Mm,
and it's all that relationship. Yes. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is a thing, and this is why it's important for everyone who's listening and wants to work with someone to always use discernment. How do
yeah.
they make you feel? Also,
Yeah.
before you go look for someone, how do you want to feel?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Right?
Right now, there's a trend. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think this trend has been going on for a couple of years or a few years now, but you see where spirituality has become a trend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're specifically, again, like spiritual bypassing. They don't even feel like knowledge at this point. It feels like bypassing.
Yes.
And a lot of times people take in this information, especially those who are feeling this inclination, they
Right?
take in this information and they regurgitate it, not knowing
Yes.
where does the origin come from? How can it
Right.
be honored?
Right.
Information and there's this one saying that I was told when I was young: knowledge is a gift in itself.
Yes. Yes.
And you have to give honoring to where the knowledge actually comes from,
Yes.
to then further becoming one with it and making it your own.
Right.
So yeah, this has become a trend, and it's
Mm-hmm.
scary. I'm
It's
I'm I'm not
scary.
going to even lie. It's scary. There are times I go through
Uh-huh.
TikTok. I'm sure
Oh,
you've seen too.
gosh.
Oh my God, twin flame. Do you know about this?
Right.
Da da
Right.
da da. I'm sure
Oh
this
my
message is
gosh.
for you. Who is going to find? No, I love how every one of these you can tell the discernment right away, because they always keep guiding you to someone else.
Right.
Like, oh, what you need in
Right.
your life is someone else.
Right. Externalization still.
Yep, yeah,
What you
and
need is outside of you, not in you.
yeah, yeah, like, oh, money will solve this, or a
Right.
lover will solve this, your
Mm-hmm.
ex-boyfriend will solve this, or a
Mm-hmm.
bigger house, a
Mm-hmm.
car. Everything is
Correct.
external
Everything.
shit.
Yes.
sorry
A hundred.
sorry for my
No,
French.
you're good. It's just free form.
Yeah,
But it's really it is sad because I love
yeah,
that we talked about this, the
I know.
trend, right? It just takes away from the sacredness of it. And the knowledge, and this is important for the listener to understand. You know how even this is part of the, I call it the fake spiritual woke people or
Yeah,
trend, that they don't want us to know the truth. No, 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 no. No, no. There's no such thing. The truth is always there, but you
mm.
have to prove yourself to attain such responsibility of divine truth. You can't
Hey,
just take it and be like, I know it. It's like reading some of these sacred books. Even I may not be religious, but even the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, they have sacredness, but we just see it for what it is and not really let it seep in and let it just be like, oh, this is what it really means, versus
yeah,
someone's telling you what they think, how they've been taught, how what this means. And you're just like, oh, yeah. And then you regurgitate. And
yeah,
that's the problem. Because even the Emerald Tablets, the Book of the Dead, I can read it and regurgitate it, but I need to sit with it. I needed to let it just
yeah,
integrate into my soul, remember where this knowledge
yes,
comes, right? Because I
yeah,
don't need to ask a guru or go look, sit in meditation, ask the energy of the book itself to talk to you, to teach you, to sit with it. It will unravel so
itself.
much truth
Yeah,
in itself that you will be mind blown. You never have to go to a library or to a person. You
yeah,
don't have to externalize truth.
yes,
And so this
yes,
is all a lie, people. That
yeah,
they don't want us to know the truth. That is a lie because they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to sit in meditation in the darkness. How many people are afraid of the darkness? That says, speaks volumes.
Another example, I love that you
Mm-hmm.
brought this up, but another example you see on, and I know a lot of listeners who are tuning in will see and relate to this.
Yeah.
Every time a goddess is
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, a god, an entity is mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
there's always some dark music, right? It's always like there's association, there's little association. Like with Hecate, there's dark music. Apollo,
Right.
there is like sunflowery music or day music.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, but why? Who
Right.
told you that Apollo is all sunshine and rainbows?
Right.
Who told you
Right.
Hecate is all about this and that? Who
Mm-hmm.
told you? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm yet to find someone who can sit and understand the archetypes. The reason
Mm-hmm.
they're archetypes
Right.
is because they are meant to evolve within their archetypal energy,
Right.
right?
Right.
Nobody's experience is ever going to be the same with
No.
working with this entity or that
No.
entity.
No.
And the biggest, and I feel the saddest thing is that the spiritual bypassing, these
Mm.
fascist woke spiritualists out
Mm.
there,
Mm.
they
Mm-hmm.
always redirect you to another problem instead of solving
Yes.
one. It's
Yes.
funny. I've seen this,
Yes.
like, okay, you want to know what's happening with you right now? Work with
Mm-hmm.
me. I feel the biggest and the most
Mm-hmm.
the true ones, who understand what is truth, what is duality, the laws,
Right.
what is
Right.
humanity, what is the merging of, they will always empower you to be with yourself first.
Mm-hmm. 1,000,000%.
Right?
That's how you discern, and that's
Yeah.
how you choose someone to work with, to
Yeah.
help empower you, not heal you.
Yes.
Only you can do that. Only you can save
Yes.
yourself. No one is coming. No one is
Yes.
gonna do it for you. That's spiritual bypassing. You can't.
Yes.
No one's gonna do it for you. Stop. Like stop. You need to do the work. And if you
Yeah.
don't want to do the work, none of us are gonna do it for you. There was
Absolutely.
a girl I met, a decade ago, and it was regarding, I think there was some scare going on in the media, and she had said, um oh, like, what would you do in emergency, would you save me? And I said no. And she was like, what? You wouldn't save me? I'm like, why is that my job? I have to go take myself out and see
Yeah.
myself. Don't you want to save yourself? So even in that space, people want to be saved, right? They
Yeah.
don't, because the programming, it's both a choice, an actual choice that you are unaware of
Yeah.
choosing not to save yourself, and the programming of someone's going to save you, someone's
Mm.
coming, right? That died thousands of years ago. He coming back for you, okay? Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
No one's coming. And it's just to keep you in a state of an awareness of self, of truth, of light,
Literally.
and unconditional love.
Yeah. And it
But
is
yeah.
it is so, like, personally for me, right? I grew up
Yeah.
in a Catholic
Mm-hmm.
mixed
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was half Catholic, half Hindu, and that was already like a question mark for people. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
cannot be two religions. And my
Right.
mom practiced in Islam as well as Buddhism at the same time, and it was like, you
Mm-hmm.
can't be. I came from a
Mm-hmm.
background that was like all religions.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point, if they make you feel closer to yourself, that's it, right?
Fantastic.
If
Yes.
you don't feel that way, step away. And
100%.
I would, I used to get into so many debates, so many debates about religion and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. But as I grew older, one of the things
Yeah.
that I realized, specifically when we talk about spirituality from the lens of faith, I have so
Mm-hmm.
much faith. I am
Mm-hmm.
a person of
Mm-hmm.
faith,
Oh my God.
but who
Yes.
do I have faith in?
Right?
Myself. My
Yes.
fucking self. Every
100%.
time I meet someone and they're like, oh, this is that, I'm like, no, I am a person of faith. My faith is in myself.
Mm-hmm.
When you can cultivate that faith in yourself, it is
Mm-hmm.
easy to then have faith in anything else. That's why
Right.
a lot of times I see people who kind of, use spiritual bypassing, or
Mm-hmm.
they kind of take information out of context. Like, for
Right.
example, in the Bible itself, the fact that they keep saying, oh,
Right.
Jesus is going to come back at the end of the
Right.
days, end of the days.
Right.
Sure, he's probably walking amongst us, but you don't recognize him because you will only recognize a martyr. You will recognize a martyr, and that's what people are gravitating
Yes.
towards. Look at what's happening in our
Yes.
world right now. The only
Yes.
problems that are getting the most attention or are consuming the energy of
Mm-hmm.
people are where people are not choosing themselves.
Ooh, that part. That part. That part. And I also say the same thing as you do. I'm like, if Jesus were not to knock at your door, you would dismiss him because you don't see yourself. Until you see yourself, you can't see him.
Yeah.
If he were real, or if he were to come back, either way, you can't.
Yeah.
If he were to offer you water, you would be like, no thanks. What's wrong with this guy?
Yes.
Come on,
Exactly.
get out of here. So it's just like it's just irritating, right? When you're not choosing yourself,
Yeah.
right? You're externalizing everything else. Right? When you're saying no to yourself, you're saying to yes to everything. If you're saying yes to you, then you're saying no to everything that doesn't serve you. And
Yeah.
that whole faith in yourself is important because that is where it all begins. It's
Yeah.
in, out, not out in, and how we were
Mm.
taught. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. And I don't want to say what's wrong or right or what's it's just in practice, we see it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, and I talked about this, and I did a recording where I said, I spoke on the war, right? And I
Yeah.
said, we have war outside of ourselves. because we are at war with ourselves.
Ourselves.
Our heart and our
Absolutely.
minds are in a battle. And so
Yeah.
if there's 100 people, let's just take 10 people. If there's 10 people and 7 of them are at war with themselves, that environment will reflect that. If 7 people out of the 10 are in love and have faith and in tapped in with themselves, the world will reflect that. That's how that
Absolutely.
works. It has nothing to do with the externalization of how it looks. And I said, people want to help, right? They want to be self martyrs. I want to help. Do the work.
Yeah.
That's how you help everybody.
Amen. Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm so glad that you brought up that you mentioned what's happening right now.
Mm,
I'm part Palestinian. I've
mm,
I'm not political, but
mm-hmm.
I am pro truth always. And I
Always, yeah.
know, and one of the things that I deeply admire about truth is that truth can be in all facets. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I realized while having multiple conversations
Yeah.
is that the very reason these wars happen is using terms like, we feel disrespected. We know this is ours, this is yours.
Mm,
The me, mine, you, yours, me, mine, you, yours. I
yes.
feel like even like in relationships, when relationship problems
Mm-hmm.
happen, when I was practicing just full time as a psychologist, my background as a clinical psychologist, cognitive behavioral psychologist, I would get a lot of couples that would come in and, they're
Right.
like, he's like he, she this, and then she's like he this. And it would be so clear that the things that they're talking about, which is disrespect,
Right.
lack of attention, all of
Right.
these things, I'm like, okay, you're talking about disrespect. Where does disrespect come from? Privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Words like when someone disrespects someone else, it is from the understanding, the person who is disrespecting, they're
Right.
doing it from a place
Right.
of conditioned knowledge.
Right.
Nobody in their right mind who carries love in their heart can actually disrespect continuously. Maybe it will happen once.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that,
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be room for, like, let me now learn,
Right.
right? And I've noticed this, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm so done with it. But I keep, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's an ongoing battle, right? But at the same time, I've noticed that all these problems, it's because people keep segregating between who's superior, who's
Yeah.
inferior.
Right.
I'm better,
Right.
you're less than, I am more, I have more, I do more. And this is the
Mm-hmm.
same problem that's in, like, the
Right.
war that's happening. It is a fucking spiritual war.
It
Why?
is. Mm-hmm.
Because the people on both ends are thinking from that space of
Mm-hmm.
me, mine, you, yours, me, mine, you, yours. And I have so much heart because that means that they're so deep in the trauma,
Right.
so deep in the
Right.
trauma of,
Right.
imagine billions, I don't even know how many
Yes.
billion, million lives that have carried the same story.
Yes.
Of course, if a
Yes.
bad seed is put into earth, even if it sprouts, it will not sprout in a healthy way.
No.
That's just
It will. Mm-hmm.
facts. And
Right.
so as people who are coming from a place of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
I think that should just go away. Like, privilege check yourself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a brown girl and I still privilege check myself because of my background,
Yes.
because I know
Yes.
I do have privilege in many areas.
Right.
And my only question then is, like, if I can do this with my background, with my standing, why can't you?
100%. 100%. Totally. Totally important. It's a coming back again to having that mindfulness. Like you have
Yeah.
to have so much awareness, self-awareness to be okay. Wait. Hmm.
Yeah.
Like I think about the simplicity of when you want to say something, is it kind, right? If
Yeah.
it's not, don't say it, right? Even simple Bambi, right? The thumper, the rabbit, he's like, my mama said if I have nothing nice to say, I'm gonna say nothing at all. There is why that exists. Why is that
Yeah.
saying a thing? Because it's so powerful. So
Yeah.
powerful. And then the power dynamics, when you were saying, is that imbalance within a
Yeah.
couple, within the war. It's like, who has a hold over the other person? No, I do. No, I do. No, but this is mine. And all of that, is division and not unified, right?
Yeah.
And as you were saying something about oh, if I can come back, but it was regarding um confusion energy is what's happening.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion energy, and because we don't know ourselves, it creates a new frequency of confusion. And then
Yeah.
we get I won't get into it now, but there's a lot of it out there, such
Yeah.
as the way that gender is now being seen. And I'll
Yeah.
just leave it at that. That's
Yeah.
confusion energy. Because if you come back to the roots, like you said from the beginning, of everything and what the intent of everything is, because
Yeah.
I'm very much into alchemy. In alchemy,
Same.
there's
Yeah.
a masculine energy and a feminine energy. In order to
Hey.
create the
Mm.
end, there is
Mm.
that. That is all that exists. And because
Yes.
you have confusion and you're confused, it creates a distortion in the
Yeah.
system, and the distortion is unnatural.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm sure we can go
I
in
feel
that.
you.
But I just wanted to touch on it just to leave a seed planted, um,
Yes.
because it needs the awareness needs to be there, because a lot of people are also afraid to speak up on that topic, because now they created like this space. Oh, you can't say nothing because, oh my God, you're gonna no. If we don't speak our truth and we don't um say what feels right in our hearts, then we are contributing to the distortion,
No, absolutely. I
right?
for me, I don't have that fear anymore. I told you,
No,
reprogram
no.
my fear so much that I'm like, okay, if it's
Yes,
there, it means it's trying to tell me like, okay, we got to
right.
do something. Be your
We
own
gotta.
revolution, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
that you can revolutionize the world. But yeah, I feel
Correct.
you. The
Yes.
distortion is real.
Yes, and as the distortion is real, but as the audience, the listener can hear that we can be here forever. We can.
Yeah.
But I want to give Sway an opportunity to share with the listener of her offerings to the community. And if it's something that resonates with you and you want to work with her, please, by all means.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel that my mission or my vision, I love using the word vision more than mission. My
Mm,
vision is to be the holder of your
mm-hmm,
space. Whoever you are,
mm,
wherever you're tuning in from, that is my space. I want to create that space for you to understand your vision, be immersed in your vision, and fully express your
mm,
vision
mm,
and be in that flow of evolution, embodiment, and expansion. So, if you resonate with whatever I
mm,
said, or if you resonate with just my energy, and if you want to
mm,
play in that energy and
mm,
alchemize with me, the best space is my abundance portal. I have multiple different offerings there, whether it is channeling on behalf of you, whether it's
mm,
alchemizing with your vision itself, whether it's just giving you that guidance of
mm.
how does your vision want to unfold. All of that and more is in the abundance portal, which I'm sure the link will be
Oh
somewhere in the
yes,
show notes.
it
But
will
yeah,
be.
that's an open invitation.
I love that abundance portal. Hey, I love that.
Thank
Come on now.
you.
That's a great way to that's what it is. That's exactly
Yes.
what it is. So yes, I will make sure to have all her information. It will be on YouTube, and who else allows me? Spotify allows me, and obviously on my website, I will have her information there as well if you want to work with her. And just I love how you said play with her energy. Like yeah, because it allows you to expand as well. So truly beautiful. um, Before I let you go, is there anything that you feel that um, the collective, the universe needs, not the universe, the listeners, maybe that's what needed to come out, that needs to hear in the here now?
Yes, there is one particular thing. It's a little
Mm,
sound alchemy.
mm,
I do this in my mornings. I do this in my nights.
mm,
I just want everyone that's tuning in to just sit with the sounds and focus on the feeling that's giving you in your chest.
mm,
All right.
mm,
So I'm going to begin. We're going to start with taking in a deep breath in And gently exhaling. Now I just want you to focus on my voice. Allow the other senses to just dull and redirect to your ears. And allow the feeling that this brings in your chest to be present. Hi. Hi. I want you to gently take a breath in. Allow all of that to integrate and exhale. Thank you for receiving that.
Gratitude, goddess, gratitude. That was completely unexpected and just divine. Thank you so much for joining me today and for being yourself and reflecting back divinity as a sister. So truly appreciate meeting you, talking to you. It's been just refreshing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I know we talked about this before, but we've got cycles
Mm-hmm,
to live
mm-hmm,
through, and I think this is just yet another cycle that we have
mm-hmm.
come into. But thank you so much for having me and
Yes.
sharing wisdom with me in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, sister. I appreciate you so much. And for the listener out there, this is how we're kicking off moving forward. Not even just the year. Time is irrelevant. It's just the new wave, the new energy, the new frequency. We will now be transmuting and in this space, unconditional love, moving forward. And as always, this will never change. Remember that the breath is the secret, and I say that because it's always the secret to come back to yourself, to the present moment, come back home, and always lead with love, as you heard why today. That's important. So thank you all for tuning in and expanding with us at Presently Aki. And until next time, I'll see you then.